to ask the question, do you find your talent or does it find you? It's not about trying to illustrate who she was, it's trying to find who she was on the inside and letting those qualities inspire movement.
Such beautiful music, and we'll be hearing a lot more during this evening. Jacqueline du Pré is still revered as one of the greatest cellists of all time. Audiences were mesmerised by her extraordinary technique and by her personal style of performance, very passionate personal style of playing. Recordings of her work remain widely sought after, and now the story of her life and career has inspired a new ballet by Cathy Marston. Cathy has a unique choreographic signature, and her skill in developing new approaches to narrative dance have already been seen here at the Opera House in the works she's presented at the Limbury. But this season, she's coming to the main stage with her latest creation, The Cellist. I'm Judith McCrell, and in this evening's Insight, supported by Rolex, we'll be exploring Cathy's new work with dancers from the Royal Ballet who'll be rehearsing live for us, and with Cathy herself giving an introduction to her work. So first, please join me in welcoming choreographer Cathy Marston. So Jackie, already you see, we identify so closely. Cathy, you've said to me already that you felt, even for you, the choice of Jacqueline du Pré was quite left field. So where did the inspiration come from? You know, why choose that?
The idea came from my sister, who is a drama teacher in a school near Cambridge. And the story goes, she started a new job and found an old battered cello in her office when she arrived. And for one of her first drama lessons with the students, asked them to improvise with this cello and happened to put on Jackie playing the Elgar. And we often share ideas, and she sort of clicked and thought, this is an idea I'm going to give to Cathy. Now, our mum has MS, so I think there was something a little bit personal in that as well. But as soon as she said the idea to me, it clicked with me for another reason. A few years ago, I made Dangerous Liaisons for the Royal Danish Ballet. And there's a little moment in Dangerous Liaisons where you have to establish that Danceny, one of the characters, is the music teacher to Cecile. And in my choreography, I try not to bring on lots of props if they're not necessary. If we can tell something through the body, I'd much rather do that. And so one day I asked one of the dancers in the Royal Ballet to become the cello. And it turns out it's really rather easy. You can do it at home. It goes like this. Well, we'll show you that later. Marty's much better at it than I am. But anyway, we made this little 30-second sequence within a full evening ballet of Dangerous Liaisons in which a dancer was the cello and she was learning to play him. But the idea, as soon as you've coordinated the music and the sort of action, I guess, of cello playing, just for a few moments, you can get quite poetic about it. So it planted a seed in my head. And when my sister Susie suggested Jacqueline du Pré, I did a bit of Googling, and I was like, this is my cello ballet.
So just give us a quick outline of how the work's panned out. What elements of Jackie's life are you portraying in the ballet, and what are your main characters?
So there are so many ballets that one could make about Jackie. I'm really interested in the idea of her relationship with the cello. So to me, it is a story of love and loss. And there are obviously other people in her life that loved her and lost her very much. But between her and her cello, there was something incredibly close and intimate. I mean, the cello is such an intimate instrument, isn't it? I mean, you hold it like this and it vibrates into your heart. It's very human-like in its shape. Apparently, its sound is the most like a human voice of all the instruments. And the relationship that you have with your talent is also something that seemed linked with that. So I was asking myself, well, where do you find your talent, or does it find you? And to what extent is your relationship with that talent a gift? We call the talent a gift sometimes, and sometimes it can really be a burden and something that you want to get rid of, reject. You know, I don't want to be talented. I don't want that responsibility. So all of these questions were really interesting to me. So that's really the central relationship. And as Jackie sort of learns to fly on this gift, and her cello just become, you know, something that soar together, that has an impact on the people around her, her parents, her sister, her family. She obviously meets her husband-to-be, Daniel Barenboim, in real life. We call her the husband in the husband in the program. They meet through music, and it's almost as if the music or the cello are bringing them together. And of course, as her talent is lost, or as she got ill with MS and was unable to play the cello, how does that impact her? How does it impact the cello? Because poor cello is left unplayed. And how does it impact the relationships around her? So it's these sorts of questions that I've been asking.
So you're going to show us one section in rehearsal. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to see?
Yeah. So to some extent, it's a biographical ballet, very much focused on this particular slant. But we do see Jackie as a young girl. We've got two beautiful students from White Lodge, the lower school of the Royal Ballet, who play Jackie and her sister. And there's a sort of Jackie swap, and she becomes older, and Jackie becomes Lauren Cuthbertson, principal dancer of the Royal Ballet. And she's supposed to go to school. Her mum doesn't want her to go to school. She wants to play the cello all day. So mum sets up a concert, her first recital, if you like. And it's that we're going to start rehearsing. So it's her first public performance. And I'm going to get this quote wrong, but somewhere in my research I read that she said when she played her first concert, it felt like a brick wall was coming down in front of her, meaning that she felt she could communicate with people for the first time. She could, you know, share a connection with people that prior to that she'd been unable to find. And that felt a magic moment to me. So we use the Mendelssohn Songs Without Words. It's a very simple, very beautiful, quite innocent melody. And we want to establish this, what we call, well, maybe we'll have to bring them on already.
I'm about to introduce them.
I'm off. Okay, you do that and then I'll carry on.
Okay, so I am going to say, please welcome Choreographic Collaborator, Jenny Tattersall, and Principals of the Royal Ballet, Lauren Cuthbertson and Marcelina Sombe. Also, we've got the musicians, Cellist Hetty Snell, Conductor Andrea Molino, and Sergei Rybin on the piano.
So before we start, I thought we might explain that there's a new position in the ballet repertoire. So we have first, as we all know, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and now there's one called cello. The cello position is that. and that's the female version in this ballet, and the male cello position is...
There's a few.
There's a few, but this is the standard. So this is sort of home base for Jackie and her cello when we begin. And we've discovered that there are all sorts of positions that you can find, and you can do this at home too. Like, once you get the idea that there's a neck of the cello, there's the body of the cello, there's a sort of bowing thing, you know, like we bow with all sorts. Can you show us some bowing motifs?
I think she
Well, there's
my legs.
So,
Look at this slide.
yeah, that's a good one. So do you see she sort of, well, do it with a bit more vibration on those legs. So as much as you can go.
Which one? From the last pas de deux?
No, that's okay. Oh, you could do it with the last pas de deux.
Yeah.
That's a good one, yeah. Yeah, just like that. So we're kind of thinking in terms of, we can bow like this. We've actually taken a couple of lessons with Hetty about how to bow. It's a four-fingered bow. If anybody sees Lauren not bowing with four fingers tonight, you can raise your hand.
Send a test.
Yeah, it's a test. So it's about, I am right, aren't we? Yeah. We have a stage manager who's on the piece who was a cellist, so she's been our our guide when you've not been here. So we've learned a bit about bowing and about vibrato and fingering. We're not being too pedantic, apart from the 4 fingers. But we've also then discovered that you can do all sorts of things like vibrato with your foot, and there are all. Can you do any of those ones that we were doing today? I'll be one of the trout gang, and you're doing like this. We're trying to find ways that you can bow in different ways. Anyway, so that's a little motif to look out for. So this is the first pas de deux that you really have together. Do you want to have a go and see how far we get? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay, let's do that. Don't know where to stand. Thank you. Keep going.
Sorry.
She's into it. She's into it. Yeah, yeah. So we made a change, and it's a tricky to change the mind. Good. Okay, so I'm going to try and quote a poem, and I'll get it wrong. It's Yeats. So there's this little quote. I'm going to get it wrong. Oh, body swayed by music, oh, brightening glance, how can you know the dancer from the dance? I might have got it a little bit wrong, but that little quote really inspired a lot of the ballet for me. So obviously the idea of the dancer from the dance, it's how can you know the cellist from her music, or so on. But it seemed so Jackie, because Jackie was a really physical player. And so she swayed, and she had this hair, which Lauren's got as well. And the swaying body, and of course, when she sadly got MS, she was still, if you like, in a sway. Seemed really appropriate. But also the brightening glance. Now, that's my note. See the fairies.
I thought we discussed that in the first one, maybe she's not...
Not as.
Yeah. Or
But I don't think, I still think you need to open your eyes. So you're a little bit looking down. Yeah. I think she doesn't need to have quite as much as she then later gets. But I think I think so. We want to see your eyes, because that's something I talked to a lot of people several people when I was doing the research for the piece, and the eyes, often they explain them as being in another world.
So bright but innocent, not...
Yeah. So that would be one note. Could you just, Jen, come and interrupt if we mark it through, we can interrupt chronologically. Okay, da-da-da-da-da, this is all good. First thing that happens, Marcy comes out. Da-da-da, he's going round. There, under. Yes, beautiful, that one's nice. And you go under.
Oh, was this the one? We made a
this
change,
was,
we made a change.
Yeah, as much as you acted on this, as much as you can dry out that movement before it comes in so it doesn't blend.
So there's a real stop
you look
and a
at
look.
her.
Yeah, and then you
Beautiful.
come in here.
Then more physicality coming in, right?
Yeah. And breathe into this. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Exaggerate the bowing of this moment here. Yeah, lovely. There. Then when you come into this one now, can you... So you don't get so... because it feels like it gets to an out, and then it's the next step. And sometimes you do it out, and it's already rippling back.
So maybe take a little bit longer to get there.
Sorry?
Maybe take a little bit longer to get there before it comes back.
And then don't rest once you get there.
So it just
So sort of turn it around. Yeah.
Marcy, when you're bringing her back up, if you can squeeze that moment, that would be lovely. A little bit.
Yeah.
And
And go. Whoa.
Sorry, back yet.
20?
Yeah, I think maybe they should go.
Deeper. Yeah.
I think when it's with the music, it'll just happen. And
And go, 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 go. Yeah, this was really good. Let's not do it again because you did it really well the first time. And then carrying on from there. Oh, I thought you could have been a bit prouder here and maybe have like a spiral. So when you come up, what did we say about the arm kind of
it grows.
having a little...
Yeah, just put the fifth on the end, Marcy.
And be a bit squarer so that, yeah. Square, 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 and and don't close your eyes either, just be happy. Yeah, and then fold in. Could you look at each other here? Would it feel all right to have a little moment of looking? If you try it. And I think that's a moment of like, maybe that's a kind of slightly, this feels great moment.
Okay.
Da-da-da-da, arabesque. This one's lovely, coming back round.
No, I just haven't quite done the wrong version.
She needs to it's that rock and roll. Get her round before you start the turn. Don't start the turn. Rock and roll her and then start the turn. That's it.
Beautiful. Oh, that was one too many. And come back. Yeah. Lovely. If you can, it's going to settle on the music, but I would love the up of that to come on the 8 rather than the 1. So normally you do da 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 instead of da, or no, I'm singing the wrong tune. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we were a little bit late.
You were a tiny bit later, which is why it was harder to come back as well.
Just after these ones, I think, Martin. So
I was late.
Yeah.
Here.
Good.
I could maybe be quicker with these ones before.
Yeah, you could, because that would be, yeah. If you can do that quicker, it would be beautiful. Okay, we should, do you want to try again or go on from there?
Try again.
Whole thing? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Good. Nice. Parallel feet. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's okay.
No, you're fine.
I think it's just sales. It was touched too fast, yeah. Before we try that again, when you do the other swizzle, the skater one, can you turn your legs, your feet parallel? They're turning out a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, the big one before the turn.
The big one before the turn. Yeah.
Should we give that from maybe?
Yeah. Do you have that moment?
Figure 31, just before it would be great.
So it's coming into that. Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
It's going up and it needs to go around. You need to drive her legs around that left side of you. Yeah.
I wonder whether as well, Marcy, because I'm lent this way, if you go flat, I'm actually already around the corner.
Should I be here more?
Not so much as that, but did you notice that, or does it not matter?
I
feel like I'm getting too far around here, so I can't get into the rhombe, say, on that angle.
didn't
So maybe just take it a little bit less round. So it doesn't come all the way back to the front, it just comes a little bit less. Yeah. And I think when she goes after the parallel, when she goes into this arabesque after the turn, I think if you can cut a half second off that turn because she's waiting for the phrase. But because she's there, you can take a little bit of time off that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same place, yeah, thank you. Yes, that's very nice. Yeah. Lovely. Wow. Keep going. Yeah. Swoop, swoop softly. And it goes on. Beautiful. Very, very nice. Good, good, good. This worked really well, the going up and the starting of that early. Did you have something?
No,
No.
it's good.
Round, round, round. This was lovely. What happens after that? Oh, it felt a bit weird. So you're now walking around. Marcy, could you lead her, instead
need
of
to be a bit
her
sooner
turning
into the
into the
walk.
attitude,
Yeah.
so you get around there earlier?
Ahead
I
of
think
her.
physically
Yeah.
it's easier if you're slightly there. Yeah, I do feel a bit funny there. Should I make it more of a rondedon so it comes around him and not...
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go, and then he can just take
Okay.
you. And then it seemed a little bit unsure about when you were going to go down.
I thought we were about to stop turning, but we carried on.
Do you know how many you're going to do?
I don't know.
It's 3 turns, I think.
Yeah.
I think I did 3 turns, but I thought it was 2, and then I was late. I don't know.
I think if you're hearing the phrasing, it's a full phrase and a half before you come down. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and
Do
7.
you want to hear that from? Do you know
From the
it's going to be?
restart.
It's going to be the next restart, bowing again.
I should just go straight into that,
Yeah.
rather than wait before I go.
We were a tiny bit late.
Oh, turn.
Do you know? Have you got the phrasing of it that we set?
It's for the lift.
them,
Yeah.
yeah.
You come down on the second, halfway through the second phrase.
If we could go straight onto the bowing. Yeah. Here we go. So you're just coming out and walking round.
Got another half a phrase.
And there, and down. Thank you.
I think you know what it is.
By the second turn?
Thank you.
I think so, because I should be holding your...
You
It's
should,
quite-
and it's nice when you do it upstage
Yeah.
so we don't see it go up.
Here.
Yeah.
So it's half turn.
I'm secure.
Cool.
I didn't need the picture of you.
Same place one more time. And 3,
4 down now, that's
okay,
it.
they're right. Yeah. Okay. You don't need to do the lift. Lift's good, lift's good, lift's good, lift's good. Beautiful. Yada-da, thank you. Can I just say you've got the cameras in the wrong place? Like, it was so nice to see you doing that and Hetty over there doing... Never mind, I'll appreciate it. The tumble, tumble, tumble. What
Flip.
happens after the tumble?
The flip.
Oh, flip. Somehow that happens just a little bit fast. You know when you come out here before the... To steal, yeah. Yada-da-da. Just... Maybe it's arriving there, and Lauren, just be slightly slow with your legs so that I can see
I
the
think
bow.
almost
Are they doing it
finish
for me?
this
They are.
and then have that as the start of the thing.
Like the force of 10 moves there.
Yeah, and also I worry because I know how much more we have to do
Right,
for
okay.
the phrase, and I panic, but I don't
Okay.
want to miss the detail.
Maybe that could be pulled out just a little bit.
Hetty.
That last time before the last...
The very end of it all,
It's before the last repetition, isn't
Yeah.
it? Before the last.
Is there a chance that you could slow down a little bit there? Thank you. I tell you what, because they've moved the camera, could we just do that bit? Yeah. I think it look really good from this side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And go. This is where we need help. And there you are.
I'm getting like in the leaf.
Thank you.
I'm getting really slow getting up.
Do you need to do the extra turn, Marcy?
The one going backwards?
Yeah.
I do like that. Because it's
'Cause they're
lovely how
now-
you kind of...
The movement. I
Yeah.
think I have to first lift her and then move it while I'm trying to go.
Because they're really missing that one that used to be the drop. They're a few counts late on that now.
That's coming out of the tumble, tumble, tumble.
Did you want the tumbles to get faster in this one?
Did we
Was
want-
this in the other one where they speed
No, I
up?
wanted it softer, so it's good. It's turning to, yeah,
getting
I
to
see
my
what you mean.
shoulder.
A little bit.
I think as well, because we're turning quite quickly, I can't actually establish a position with my back yet.
It's almost, yeah. What about getting up with the turn and then moving back before you...
That's what I was thinking, like finish the movement before I start moving. Because I'm feeling like I'm getting so late.
So finish it even more, because I think you're thinking of finishing, but actually you're still turning. So she needs to get up so she can get her back locked.
And musically, without it being violent, can we slightly anticipate
Yeah,
the
you
last
can.
two?
You were doing it softer, but I think, yeah.
If we could
Yeah.
just get ahead
Yeah.
of it so it gives you a bit more time. Can we try once more?
Yes,
We really slow down this one.
yes. Do you want the same place musically?
It's 2/8 later.
Oh, we could have, yeah, the dear, I'm not going to sing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the 5, 6, 7, 8 would be lovely. Five, 6, 7. That's it.
And help would... Lovely, 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 lovely. That works,
Yeah.
that works. Good, 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 good. Is that a good moment to move on?
So I think we need to give these dancers a break for a moment. We'll be back. So they'll be back with us shortly for their second rehearsal. Meantime, here's some detail. The Cellist opens at the Royal Opera House on the 17th of February as part of a double bill, and will be live in cinemas across the world on the 25th of February. To find out more, please visit the Royal Opera House website. Now, as always, we want to hear from you tonight, so please do send in your thoughts and comments on YouTube. And now to tell us more about the way she's given choreographic life to Jacqueline's story, please welcome back Cathy Marston. Cathy, you've come to this work after having choreographed a number of really big narrative ballets like Victoria, Jane Eyre, Lady Chatterley's Lover. Is this an extension of that approach, or are you taking a slightly different route into your story here?
I suppose for the first time, one of the reasons that this idea of the love story between the cello and Jackie was so appealing was I wanted to imagine a story between a human being and essentially, well, a non-human being, an object. As it happens, the more we investigated that relationship, we can't help but invest human or project human emotion and qualities into that figure. But it lent a more poetic starting point, I suppose, to a relationship. So in a way, I guess that's different, yeah.
It's moving into more poetic and metaphoric territory, if you like.
To some extent. But there are still definitely, I mean, Daniel Barenboim was Jackie's husband. It's a biographical ballet without being too obsessed with the exact details. So it's not like we're making a documentary ballet about Jacqueline du Pré, but we meet the husband, who happens to be a conductor. And so there are human relationships. Her mother, her father, her sister are there. There's a chorus of narrators as part of the piece, and that's an extension of many of the works you mention. I often like to find ways to use the group in a way that isn't just when you need a party scene or a market scene or something like that.
Or brothel.
Yeah, any of those. Occasionally you need those, but I like to try to find a way to use a group of dancers, almost like a Greek chorus, really, so that they can become characters within the story. So the women do become schoolgirls, or they do become an audience at the Wigmore Hall when Jackie's trying to play. But at the same time, they become literally the orchestra. And by that, I mean, that was a tricky one to define. They're not the musicians, so they're not playing air, violin, etc., because that would be weird, because there's a man being the cello there, so where's their little cello or violin? But they're also not being precisely the instrument. So we're trying to embody the orchestra physically with a sort of sea of dancers being that orchestra. What else do they become? Lots of different things. Whenever I need, they become the public. When Jackie and her husband get very famous and they go on this big concert circuit, that's quite a complex scene where I'm using the group to, at one point, be the musicians, and next the audience, and then their backstage friends, and there are all sorts of things, and they're used in a way that's abstract enough that they can transform into these various characters almost momentarily. So it's not naturalistic in that respect.
Was there a particular point in Jacqueline's life that you started when you began work on the ballet? I mean, did it just start at the beginning, or did you jump right in the middle?
I work with Edward Kemp, a dramaturg and a writer who we've been collaborating for about 18 years now. Usually we research independently, and for me that meant reading the various biographies, watching the wealth of film. We're very lucky that particularly Christopher Nupin made so many documentary films about Jacqueline du Pré, so we've got all these visual impulses that we've really used. I interviewed and met several people that had known Jackie at different points of her life, and I also wanted to really get the multiple sclerosis aspect right. So apart from obviously my experiences in talking to my mum, I met people who were suffering from MS and spoke to them about what that felt like. I wanted to approach that in a less of a scientific way and more of an experiential way, if that's a word. So all of that comes at the beginning, and then I get together with Ed, and he usually sits me down. It's a bit like going to the therapist and says, how do you feel? What do you already imagine? What's in your mind's eye? And very often there are already moments. So in the case of this ballet, there's a film of Jackie playing the Elgar Concerto with Barenboim conducting, and they're on these two little platforms, podiums. And it's the electricity that you can see passing between one and the other. And it had been filmed so that the orchestra are sort of lower down and around them. So there's a sea of musicians and then them. And it's choreographic just in itself. It's so beautiful to watch. So that was a scene that I already knew was one of the scenes in the ballet. And we'll lay it out on paper and jiggle the pieces of paper around. So we kind of create a storyboard. And out of that, and finally comes the scenario. And I take that scenario to then the composer and the designer and start working with them on those aspects of the piece.
Let's talk a little bit more about the MS. I mean, having your mother suffering from that illness, did it give you a kind of sense of personal mission or delicacy even about the way you approach the material?
I don't think actually any more than I would normally have. Yeah, I mean, I want to portray the MS in a way that respects it. I mean, and respects people that suffer from that. I don't think having my mum in that state particularly changed the way I work. Obviously, it's a little bit more personal, but I always go quite deeply into things. So no, I don't think so, really.
And you talked about the other people that you interviewed who knew Jackie. Who were those? Were they? I mean, it's extraordinary to be choreographing a ballet about a subject, about a person who's
in living memory.
In living memory, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there were a variety of people. So Kevin O'Hare, the director of the Royal Ballet, and I went to meet Daniel Barenboim at the outset because we wanted to get his blessing, I guess, make sure that it was okay for him, which was slightly terrifying because he's, an amazing artist, and it's probably a little surprising for someone to be asked, we'd like to make a ballet about your wife and you. But he was, I think, quite charmed by the idea, and he was certainly very charming to us, so that was good. And then I met whoever I could find, so some fellow musicians, some people that had cared for her in the later years when she was ill. I spoke to Christopher Nupin, among others. So, yeah, there's a variety of people.
And when you came to cast your main characters, essentially Jackie, Daniel Barenboim, and the cello, were you thinking in terms of those real-life models when you cast them? I mean, was that a pressure on you?
Really hard, very hard, because one of the things that everyone told me about Jackie, and you can see it in the photos and films, she was quite large. She's tall and strides out. She's quite almost like a Greek goddess or something with the hair and all of that. And all of the dancers in the Royal Ballet, even the taller ones, are tiny, tiny. And so we realised I wanted to work with Lauren for many reasons. We'd worked together when she was a very young dancer of the company, and we'd held this connection for a long time, and so it felt right to go back to her, and I could feel Jackie in her. But she's like that. So we realised that when we started finding the vocabulary for the part, we would have to look for the essence rather than the actual. We were not going to make Lauren look exactly like Jacqueline du Pré, hair notwithstanding. So we identified qualities, and I usually come into a studio having done the scenario. I'll then break it down, and every character or group of characters, I write lists of words that distill the research and reading that I've done into simple images, adjectives, verbs, and so on. And there were various things that came up about Jackie. Her nickname was Smiley, so that sort of joy of life. She was a little bit goofy sometimes. She was very funny, had a great sense of humour. She obviously had rhythm, so we used that because I wanted to choreograph it on point. It's very difficult to be goofy in a pair of point shoes. They sort of look like clogs. So one day we thought, she's got rhythm. Let's just try throwing in a little tap step just before a piqué turn or something like that. Perhaps we can ask Lauren to show us in a minute. And we had a brilliant rehearsal because Lauren and I had obviously both done tap dancing when we were little. So we got quite hysterical that day and found, which was right, it captured something of Jackie. So anyway, that was Lauren. And then it was a tricky choice for Daniel because, Barenboim is on the smaller side. But ultimately, I was not after, as I say, drawing, making lifelike representations of them. And we had a rehearsal quite early on in a little research week I was given with Jackie, with Lauren and Matt, and I decided to start playing around with a duet for Daniel and Jackie. And it was just, great chemistry, a lot of fun, and I just walked out of the studio going, well, they don't look anything like the character, but it's fine. And then Marcy, I mean, you can see, he's like visual music, it oozes out of him. It's amazing. His body ripples. And a lot of the imagery in the piece is based on circles, curves. I mean, I'll talk about the set in a minute, but it felt like I wanted to get that sort of sequential movement, an ability to go up and down, use all the levels very liquid, like liquid, fluidly would be the word. And Marcy has that.
Now you're talking about music. I'd like actually to talk about the score as well, and maybe we can bring on Andrea as well.
Yeah, where is he?
The conductor.
Andrea Molino is our maestro.
So you weren't ever going to choreograph this ballet directly to Jackie's most famous score, and instead you worked together with Philip Feeney to weave together parts of her repertoire into a finished piece of music.
I mean, obviously Jackie was most known for the Elgar cello concerto. I always knew that would have to feature in some way, and I mean, it's so beautiful, why would you not want that? But I did have a period of time where I thought, well, maybe it's too obvious. Should we make a new score and just sort of embed little nuggets of it somehow? And the more I began working on the piece and the scenario, I felt it's so important to have those pieces, some of that repertoire that she played really there, not sort of hidden, but so that we could all feel it, almost like part of the set in a way. You know, she was there playing those things. It's more than, it doesn't live above the story, it lives really in the story. So I asked Philip Feeney, who I'd worked with on several ballets, or I have worked with on several ballets, if he would consider bringing a score together in which we would incorporate various pieces of her repertoire. And he agreed. The real elephant, though, in the room was still the Elgar, because most ballet scenes, or in about, the piece is 55 minutes long. It's got 21 scenes, so most of the scenes are quite short. They're sort of in the region of 2 to 4 minutes long. So to fit in a piece that we've just heard, the Songs Without Words, is quite easy because it's short and it's simple. But the Elgar is sort of 3 large movements, and there were no scenes in the ballet that would just, you know, you couldn't slot it in there, even if you just took one of those movements. So for a long time, we thought, well, we'll just use some of the themes and sort of weave them in. And anyway, Philip, I'm terribly grateful for his great humour. He composed the whole score. I listened to it for the first time all the way through last summer, and I was sat, luckily, with Edward Kent, the dramaturg, and I thought, oh no, we're really, really, really missing the Elgar. It's just wrong without it. And I had to call Kevin O'Hare and say, I'm so sorry, we're going to be late, but we have to get this right. And obviously, everyone's going to have their own opinion about what right is, but this was my right, and this is my right. So I asked Philip, please could we put the first movement of the Elgar concerto into this orchestral scene that I just described. And actually, it works. If you imagine, there's sort of 2, do you call them sections, like the A section and the B section?
Yes. There's a third element as well. So it's
It's sort of, so there's the famous beginning, and then it gets a bit sort of more upbeat for a while, and then it goes back
more
to
luminous, if you want. Right?
Word. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So when it gets luminous, we sort of crossfade out of the orchestra, and if it were a film, we'd imagine that Daniel and Jackie suddenly take off across cornfields, falling in love together, or something like that. And then they're talking about music all the time, but it's their love story, and then they come back by the end to this sort of concert playing situation. And it works, actually.
It works. And I mean, I agree with you. I think we started, you remember, together with Philip, I was observing with the Saint-Saëns concert as well.
Yeah.
And then there was a point in where you said first, but everybody had to agree. No, we can't. We have to go for the Elgar.
Yeah.
And even considering that this very famous video, so everybody knows how the two looked like when they were playing that, but still, and I think it perfectly works. I think it as you said, the dancer performing Barenboim it doesn't look like Barenboim, and this helps as well to create a different world, which incorporates that experience, and it's so moving, I think.
I think one of the others, am I allowed to say one more thing?
Yeah.
There was one of the really interesting conversations that's ongoing, really, about the characterizations within the piece was, of course, the cello, because sometimes he's literally being the cello, a sort of wooden instrument, but he also becomes, I wish I could find a better word for this, the sort of spirit of music. And you might have noticed in the first duet, he's sort of being played and then he steps out and looks at her. So he has a kind of meta role in a way as well throughout the piece. So we talked about how the cello would move when he's not literally being a cello. And I thought, okay, well, this particular cello was very expensive, very fine, very old, or perhaps we should use the word mature. He or it has passed through many hands and known great loves and therefore great losses before. So unlike Jackie, who's in the spring of her life, this cello is as Elgar was in perhaps the autumn of its life. And so I really liked that the Elgar's that the presence of the music of the Elgar kind of supported that role of the cello in that way.
And as a conductor, is it a novel experience for you to be working with? I mean, to say it's a patchwork score sounds denigratory, but it's a different approach to
It's a completely different approach,
pieces.
and I am not from my background, I'm not a ballet conductor.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was new for me, and was new in a completely intriguing way. First of all, with a new score, which I love working with, and so interacting with the composer and helping somehow to a certain extent, of course, to develop and to follow the dramaturgy, and then having all these crossed elements in the rehearsal space, where the stories about music, where the pieces of music which narrated in the score in the ballet are inside the score in different ways. By the way, for example, the reason I did not conduct the Mendelssohn is that Philip Finney kept the original piano and cello. So even in the pit, the Hetty and the pianist will play the original one. And the next one we will do in a few minutes is similar, is the Rachmaninoff quote, the Rachmaninoff romance, but the orchestra is like swims inside the piano. The piano is there, the original one, but then you hear little instruments that double the piano so that they create a different perspective on that. And this is extremely elegantly solved by Philip. And then there are other, for example, the Elgar melody, it does stay in many other places in the score, like a shadow, like a suggestion. And this is I would say, outstanding work of a composer. Also the way that he makes a step back in a way, in his way of shaping the score, accepting all those quotes that are related with the narration, with the dance narration. This was fascinating to follow.
Can I add one story just
Well,
about...
actually,
you can't.
I'll save it for later. I would love you
But
to.
I'd like to do one story about the Elgar.
I know.
Because
we want to do the same story.
Okay.
Maybe 30 seconds.
Make it quick.
Very quick. Make it quick. So when she decided to go for the Elgar, and then of course we were confronted with a video, as I mentioned, and the first thing she asked me was kind of a lesson of orchestral bowing. So she was if in the score this sign, what does it mean with the bowing, etc., etc. So I tried to explain, because she wanted to translate this in the ballet and also in the relationship with the orchestra. And then she came to me and said, "Look, but the cellos in the video of the concerto, they are doing the wrong bow." and she was right. I didn't notice it. Bowing is something flexible. It was not a mistake. Yeah. But she was so inside the details of that element that she recognized something that I myself did not have spotted.
Result for the choreographer. Yeah. Okay. Now we must welcome back the dancers, Marcelina and Lauren, and Jenny, rehearsal, and the musicians, Hetty and Sergei and Andrea.
So we're going to rehearse now scene 20. Can you remember how many scenes there are? Yeah.
Very good. She's testing.
So we're near the end. So this is the point where Jackie has been diagnosed with MS, and she had the relapsing and remitting sort, so it kind of came and went for a period of time. And she did try to play again, and you have to imagine that she's in the Wigmore Hall, so the audience are kind of here, and she comes onto stage, and she's been practicing, and she wants to play another concert. and this is sort of poetic license a little bit. She lifts her arm to play, and the arm won't function, which of course is everyone's nightmare, or every performer's nightmare. And so she looks at Daniel. Daniel ushers everybody off, or her husband ushers everybody off. And there's this last duet between the cello and Jackie, and she's, what is she, Lauren?
I suppose the way I feel, she's heartbroken because she thinks she can play again.
She thinks she can play again. Oh, don't start crying now! Oh my
You shouldn't have asked me
Sorry.
anything.
So it's very emotional, this. It's a really, really hard... So we've talked about loss, and Ed, our dramaturg, has told us about these 5... I'm not going to remember them. You have to help me here. There's apparently 5 stages of loss that can come in different order, and I'm going to not remember them all. But we've got bargaining. So if I practice really hard or really warm up my hands, they're going to work. There's grief, so depression. There's anger. There's, what's the other one before acceptance? Can't remember. Lost one anyway. But denial. Thank you. There's denial, and then there's acceptance. And in this particular duet, it's anger. Like, I really wanted to have you express the anger. I don't want you. I don't even like playing you. Like, you know, all of this real frustration that would vent itself and then come to an acceptance. That's scene 21. You're not going to get that tonight. But we're working on this. So it's to this most beautiful, beautiful music. I completely adore it. And we're at the point where we have a few music hooks, but I don't want to tell Lauren, can you be really angry on 3? To me, that doesn't work. I think she needs to run in the piece with Marcy and find the musicality that feels right. And I mean, it's such a beautiful opportunity to work with the live music like that. So we're in the point where we'll probably be fiddling around with the music and timings, but...
And this is the first time you've done this with Hetty?
Yeah. Okay, let's give it a go and see how far we get. So we're gonna go from just before the silence. So if you imagine so if you could give us the note before.
That would be, no, actually from here, yes, from the silence. So when someone shakes the hand, yep.
And Andrea, can I give you a cue when to break it? Because we're playing with how long to extend that. So is that okay?
Yeah.
You're coming in. Sorry, thank you. We've lost.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to hear that because I'm not really sure when.
Do you know what's really hard? He's supposed to come back with the low horns, and with the piano, it's really... Do you think you could
The piano was not there yet. This is harp. The piano
So
is
the
coming later. It's coming in 2 moments.
The harp is the lift.
Yeah.
But before that, there are some low horns, I think. Yeah. Could that be? Could you say horns for us?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, let's stress this.
Yeah.
Is the whole brass section.
Yeah, could you just say brass gently, and then we'll
get
notice
it.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Same
thing again. I have a question for the audience. So, length of that silence. Any comments? Longer, shorter? We did this at the Oxford University this week, and I gave them 3 examples, and everyone wanted it really long. So I'm going to try a long one, and you can tell me next time what you think.
Would it be better, Cathy, if I was slower, if it's going
Yes,
Now, okay.
yes.
Should I slow down?
This one here.
Yeah.
How quickly I put
I
the
think
arm down.
so. I think you should be up there by the end of the music, and don't start it straight away. So you take a breath. So there's a moment when you know that's not quite working, but it doesn't string straight. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna try. So you have to be on your ball now. I'm gonna ask again. Yes, please.
Hear the brass.
A bit later. Keep going, keep going. Keep going straight out. Right? Oh, we're gonna come. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt that. What happened there? Did you do it too many times?
Just here, I was struggling because I think I've got a wrong arm, Denny.
On which
To
one,
get,
lovely?
to get over him from here, from back over Marcy.
You put
I'm not
one
getting
under
over
and one
him.
over.
You're not getting over.
I don't know how to shift my hips over.
If you can't quite get over, we put in for B, putting the left hand on the floor, which means you've got a push and a pull, which works for her. Otherwise, it's just when you flop back here, you can't flop too far away from the leg. Because if you roll too far down the knee, when
Is
you
that
go...
what makes it harder if I'm that far
Yeah.
down his leg?
down this way and also away, because the further your pelvis is away from him, his centre, the harder it is for you to get
Okay.
across. So,
you want to just
have
try
you still
that
got
bit?
your hands on her when she goes to the floor?
Excuse me?
You know, you know when she flops down before you pull. Have you got a hand on her?
No.
You haven't.
And I'm lifting without
Yeah.
going. It did feel like a bit further this way.
Yeah,
but I
it's a
mean-
bit too
Is it
close
like
to
too
his
far there?
knee.
No,
No, to
that
his
way,
knee.
Towards the,
So
you're
when you
rolling off too
roll,
much,
you're
it's-
rolling downstage too much, and you want to try and stay as tight to him here.
Rotate
Yeah.
more,
So then it's
not
easy for you
roll
to
away.
grab.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that might be it.
Okay.
But you save this, and then when you come down, are you coming down onto straight legs, or is it a
Yeah.
plie and a push?
No, it's
just
straight legs. Yeah,
Okay.
but I would love it if you didn't hold there. So if it came there and straight away, kept going round. Da 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 da. You were a little bit. You know what? It didn't matter.
No, no, no.
I think it's
Oh, no,
fine.
I wasn't
There.
looking at- from this one.
Yeah,
You were
you were late
sort
into.
of raised behind
Yeah.
me, so I
Yeah,
messed up.
that's okay. Should we take it from the start of the melody? So go from the soutenu.
Cathy, we were discussing about tempo, and I was trying out to give you what you were suggesting, but we realize now that we are on a very fast side. Do you think we could slow it down a little bit without? Yeah, it's negotiation.
Yeah,
This is all the time like
Give
this.
it a go.
It's
Yeah.
just let's
Yes,
so
yes,
that,
yes.
that she can develop her bow and develop a more luscious sound.
Okay.
But just a little bit.
Let's give it a
Let's
go.
try.
Could you give us just a tiny lead into the beginning?
Two before? Yes, that's good.
Lovely.
Two before. So this is still a harp. And now comes the piano.
go, 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 go. That's what I mean, no stop. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Tell me.
I meant to turn, aren't I?
If you duck under the arm, turn, and then push in. So it's just 1 second later.
Marcy, it stays still a bit long. Are you? Is it because of the bag?
We're coming up like in the wrong count anyways.
You're a
So
bit.
I was trying to catch up with the music so that it's a bit later.
I think you came up just a little bit early, but you can stay there, which you did.
Okay.
And then as soon as that hits the
Start
deck,
walking
keep
through,
going.
right?
So yeah, da, 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 da. And this I would love if it wasn't on the music. So if it fights it, so it doesn't.
Let's move on. We're getting a bit late.
Yeah, it feels a little bit even. And it's got to be you leading that. So you're kind of trying to wake her up again.
Okay.
Where do you want to take it from? Do you want to
From the big lift?
do the? Do you want to do the big lift? Mark the big lift. There, that's right. Should we hear it from the big lift and then pick it up? No, he knows where it is. Sergey knows.
Ah, yes. Directly?
Yeah, but hang on.
wanna do
They're
the
going to go
lift?
directly onto the big lift. And we're there. And go, 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 go. Faster, yeah, da, 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 da. Go. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Not between the
No,
legs.
but why are we so...
I don't know, I feel like it's slowed down quite a bit now, and I'm a bit lost.
You were
Don't
right
worry
on
about
it
the
here.
music yet. I think
that
really,
the music?
yeah.
Coordination.
Yeah.
It took so much longer. The in-between.
I was here for a very, very long
But I
bit.
think you could have moved on. This was as you were. This was
They
normal.
were, they were a little bit early from that because they took that a little bit faster, so they were here a little bit early.
But then after that, it was on.
Then the push was right, and then you do have a wait.
I think we mustn't get fixed up because we've got to find a way to bring together the two things. So I don't want to put definite milestones on until we've rehearsed together yet. Just as a physical note, when you do, after you've done all of that and she comes round, if you did a little shunt back, which
You've
makes
got
it hard
to
for her
wait. So you
to-
stay there. She does one turn.
When you come on,
So she
can you
goes
put it more
under
that way?
the arm.
Yeah, travel more. So then when you push me...
Okay. Woo. Yeah,
Otherwise I have to fight it that way.
that was good. Okay. Should we try from the same place? You don't need to do the lift picking it up, coming down from the lift?
Okay.
Straight on to the diddly-dee. Are you good, you two?
They're going to mark it.
Yeah. They're going to mark the
Yeah.
big lift and pick it up after. 2. And legs. This is spot on. Thank you, thank you.
I'm confused with the guys. Do we go forwards, backwards?
My leg. And then you go up.
So I need to go.
You go forwards, backwards,
As
forwards.
soon as you feel the
That's it.
Second hand wrap. And as soon as the hand's in, just try from the
That
rock.
was so much further today.
That was exciting.
ha, boom.
Yeah.
And rock, boom, change. No, do the change after Marcy, because otherwise she'll go. So go rock, boom, attitude, and
before I do my attitude.
change the hand.
Yeah. I go rock when I'm back, and then I do this.
Okay, so she needs to wait a second then before the kick. Because after you do this, he needs 2 feet down before you go into it. So maybe you can just give her a little bit of a bounce so she knows when to go. And rock, boom, change, boom.
But it almost feels like I'm trying to lift it before the
She
leg.
starts it.
Because this is the leg going.
Not yet, Lauren. So hold on. So you watch from the outside and then you'll see. So he goes, rock, 2, step, boom, and then you go, woo! I wasn't expecting that.
Surprise!
On the microphone. Thank you very much. One, 2, 3, baya, boom, boom. That's it.
There you go.
That's it. And then Marcy, as soon as you get her up and the turn starts, try and get to that second pit, because then it will roll out. So this is just nice to have her secure on the way up, and then when she's up there, go to the pit.
Do you want to try it from here? We can go straight into the chest. That's our other cue that we know. Heart, I think it's called in the score. And have you got a tiny lead into it? Like a bar in or something? Yeah. Beautiful. Well done. Well done. Good. Right? Well done, guys. Good.
I feel I'm the most unpopular person in the room, constantly interrupting when things just get so beautiful and so fascinating as that. But we're going to let the dancers have a quick break before I get them back, and also when I get Cathy back. I just wanted to say that we've had some great comments from people coming in on YouTube. There have been audiences watching from around the world, including France, Peru, Greece, Canada, and Belgium. And TR Look says, it's so beautiful to see these two dance with such intensity together. And Hibbs Dance, who completely agrees, so lovely to see the passion of dancers within a studio environment, and also Cathy's lovely relationship with them. Well, I think we'd all agree with that. So now I'm going to talk to Cathy again, a little bit about the design of this ballet. Cathy, you've been working with two designers, Hildegard Bechtler on the set and Brechia von Barlen, Brechia von Barlen on the costumes. Can you just talk us through, I think you've chosen a selection of images to give us an idea of the visual look of the piece.
Yeah, I think there's some model box images. So I wanted to work with someone who would understand I don't want a realistic space. I didn't want a real place, but rather, I suppose, a memory space was one of the things I was after. And a staging that would give me the possibility to work, to pretend that little areas of the stage were Jackie's home or a concert hall or a hospital or any of those things, but that would be suggesting those places rather than illustrating them. And so I went to Hildegard Bechler, who is an amazing and very experienced set designer. So she first of all, in our first meeting, she'd found these pictures of the inside of a cello that a photographer had taken. So they look like rooms, obviously a tiny camera inside a cello, and you see the light coming through the F-holes, and really evocative. And I said, yes, great starting point. And then the next meeting we had, she had designed these 3 walls. I think if you just click through them, you'll see they're 3 curved walls, and there's one very large one that rotates, and on the sort of that side of it, it's made of sort of cello wood, varnished wood, and it's got a little bench. And then as it rotates on the back side of it, it's kind of plywood, like almost like the inside of a cello or a backstage area. And so we can use that throughout the piece, and we use it quite a lot. It's very easy to move, and we've had a kind of mock-up in rehearsal studios. And then the other 2 walls are sort of slightly smaller, one's taller and one's shorter. And they are black, a little bit like vinyl from records, and that's one of the major props that we use in the piece is a vinyl. I love the idea of sound waves and circles that sort of increase and diminish, echo, all of those things felt like part of the visual imagery. And so the dancers move these walls, and we bring in chairs. So that's the Wigmore Hall. That's the set for the duet that we just saw. I think we saw some of the little blue chairs that look like school. There's a sort of larger armchair that gets used for the house of the du Pré household. So we set the scene very simply, and I try to use the dancers as much as I can to also give a sense of place and where we are. So sometimes I do ask the dancers to become a coffee table or a standard lamp or things like that. And they can become it very fast, and then it's gone. You know, it's very light when you try and suggest objects through bodies. They can go away. You don't have to lug things off stage.
I don't know, are we getting costumes as well? Oh yes, here's just an image of the costumes.
So they're normal people costumes. It's a sort of story, I guess, of the 60s, early 70s. So we have normal people's outfits. And what I love about Brecha's work is that she doesn't stick things on. It feels, the materials that she uses and the cuts that she uses feel like they become part of the movement. Not that the dancer's sort of fighting to show the movement through an extra layer. It's just part of the same layer. She was an ex-dancer. She was a dancer with Netherlands Dance Theatre for many years. Beautiful. And I think she really gets what the body needs to move in.
So let's bring your dancers back on, Lauren and Marcelino.
They've disappeared.
They've disappeared.
No, here they are.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for those rehearsals. Tell us a little bit, just the 2 of you, what it's been like working on this ballet with Cathy in the studio.
Well, it's been quite a long process, but it's been quite stop and start. And sometimes that would be really frustrating, but actually I think for this particular piece, it's really lent itself because it's meant that you've been able to go away, think about it, and come back. And especially because Marcelino's role is, he's not, he doesn't have a name, although I do call him a cello. I think to build that relationship over time has been something that I've found quite unique and quite special in terms of a creation process.
Yeah, it really has felt like a collaboration the whole time, which for me is so important and so exciting, because there's a piece of all of us in a piece, and I think that makes it so much more personal, so much more believable. And the movement has so many varies, which is exciting as well. It stretches in all sorts of styles and vocabulary, which is so rich, which is very exciting.
And does Cathy ask you to contribute movement and ideas and emotions? So it's very much a conversation between you.
Yeah, constantly.
I mean, I was very interested in this idea that essentially you're the player and Marcelino is the cellist. So the starting point of your pas de deux, in a way, is a reversal of the traditional duet form, you know. And yet he then kind of embodies you. He wraps you up in his music, so it reverses. It's a lovely interchange between you.
It was actually quite challenging in the beginning, trying to understand how I'm going to lift her facing away.
Physically, actually, it took a long time,
and we weren't sure on how we're going to do it. But that obviously is as well the spirit of music. Is something more than just an object, and that has stretched the movement and made it more three-dimensional and more.
He allows Jackie to feel all of those things she felt, and therefore the audiences felt.
Yeah. So for you, Lauren, Cathy's asking you to embody Jacqueline's life at various stages, and obviously at the end when she's ill and suffering from MS. How was that for you as a dancer, just that last aspect?
Well, I think what always hits home is that it's the true story. And so that aspect, you want to do it respectfully, but it is harrowing. And I think that the challenge for me has been, and for maybe Cathy as well and together, is to really portray that physically and emotionally, but it still has to be cohesive as a piece and as a piece of dance. I think that's been quite a challenge, but it's been certainly a sort of a teamwork, maybe. I think teamwork, and I can't see how I look, so I'm really relying on Cathy and Jenny and now Edward to help.
I think also, as much as, I mean, they're dancers that have an automatic, they sense where their bodies are, but all of us are working from the inside out. I think that's been very clear, that no one's got, well, I need to fix my arabesque.
That's true.
It's very much about what we feel it might have been to be in the shoes of the people that we're portraying, or that they're portraying.
Yes, I was so impressed that the detail you bring in with the MS symptoms, none of it's caricature. You don't get a sense of, oh, now this is a ballet dancer imitating a sick person. It feels very organic to your body and your emotion.
I think as well it's also wonderful, what I suppose we didn't show tonight was the real height of her career and meeting Daniel. And there's an amazing piece with Elgar where I feel it shows her at the peak. And it's also...
And playfulness.
And playful. She's smiley, she's silly, she's funny, she's witty. Yeah. She's everything we all want to be. But yeah, I think that it's wonderful to show the true arc.
Yeah. And Marcelino, for you, you're basically dancing an instrument that has a kind of human spirit. Does it feel different from your traditionally human characters?
Yeah, I have discovered so much in me through playing something that has not been portrayed before. Do you know what I mean? It's an original idea, which for me it's so exciting because I can really go into the depths of how I feel, and as well the fact that I'm portraying music, that as well gives so much information to what the physicality would look like. And I feel that it has been the most creative and exciting time. So I've been having such a great time having this creative energy and really feeling the music, because he is music. So it has been such a rich experience in that aspect.
Well, I'm afraid that this is all we've got time for all of you. Cathy, Lauren, Marcelino, thank you so much for all of this, and also to Jenny Tattersall, Choreographic Collaborator, and to the musicians Hetty, Sergey and Andrea. Thank you everybody for watching tonight's Insight, supported by Rolex, and to our audience here in the Claw studio. The Cellist opens at the Royal Opera House on the 17th of February and will be performed as a double bill featuring Dances at a Gathering by the great Jerome Robbins, and you can see it live in cinemas across the world on 25th of February. So thank you and good night to all of you.